Welcome to footballgameplan.com where football makes sense. That's the czar of playbook, Emery Hunt, and I'm Tyler Merkovich. And this is the 2009 Western Athletic Conference preview. And when you mention WAC, you gotta mention the Boise State Broncos. Chris Peterson, only in his fourth year, an unbelievable record of 35-4. Of course, he took over for Dan Hawkins, who departed to Colorado. Hawkins built the program up, but he's kept it consistent. They lose Ian Johnson, their running back, who set the WAC career rushing record, beating out Marshall Faulk. Kellen Moore, their redshirt freshman last year, now a sophomore, needs to lead this offense now.
As a redshirt freshman last year, Kellen Moore had 25 touchdowns, completed 69% of his passes. I'm excited to see what he's going to do this year. He's a real phenomenal quarterback. He has a strong arm, quick release, so he gets that ball out there quick. You look at who's going to replace Ian Johnson. You have Jeremy Avery, 600 yards rushing last season as a backup. Look for him to double that this season. So the running back situation is going to be solid. I like that. You look at their O-line is young, but experienced, because last year a lot of freshmen started, so they're sophomores now this year, so this is a scary offense.
Austin Pettis, second team All-WAC, assumes the leading role at wide receiver. He's 6'3". He led with 11.6 yards per reception last year.
37 points a game. Look for that to improve.
Of course, offensive line, Ryan Clady, they bring it up. Underrated offensive lineman, Andrew Woodruff, they lose. But they don't have one offensive lineman over 300 pounds. They're all 280, 290, 260. They're all fast and versatile.
When you run a spread offense like that, you have to have agile offensive linemen. They have to be quick, but they can pass block. So I like that about them. And they also, when you run block in the spread, you're really blocking angles. So these guys are perfect fit for that system.
Defensive front led by the end, Ryan Winterswick, first team All-WAC, and the back half. 3 starting defensive backs return, led by Kyle Wilson, first team WAC.
Don't worry about passing the ball on these guys. That secondary, you look at Kyle Wilson, 5 interceptions, Brandon Thompson, 4 interceptions, and the safety Jerron Johnson, 98 tackles, 3 picks as well too. So that secondary is solid. They're stout against the run. Only gave up 12 points per game. The run defense was outstanding. So I like that defense. The defensive line is young, but you have 3 sophomores starting, and they got valuable reps last season. So they're young, but again, they're experienced.
11 returning starters for Peterson's 12-1 squad, who was undefeated heading into the bowl game, which they dropped by 1 point to TCU. And first thing that comes to mind when you mention the Broncos of Boise, it is the Smurf turf. And out of conference, they host Oregon and Miami, Ohio on the Smurf turf. They're at Tulsa and at Bowling Green. In conference, they get Nevada on the Smurf turf. They travel to Hawaii.
Well, they start off with Oregon. That's a big game. And they end with Nevada. That's another big game. In between, they should win.
Pat Hill, anytime, anywhere. That's his motto when scheduling his Bulldogs of Fresno State. Last year, disappointing year. Tom Brandstater, he's out. They bring in Derek Carr, who's David Carr's younger brother. They were 7-6 last year, 15 returning starters. This is Pat Hill's 13th year. Ryan Colburn is going to be their starting quarterback, and Ryan Matthews returns. He averaged 5.7 yards per carry.
One thing about those running backs, they have 3 really good ones. You look at Anthony Harding, Leah Miller. You look at Ryan Matthews. All 3 backs combined for 2,200 yards and 19 touchdowns. That's running the football. Pat Hill, a former offensive line coach, so the offensive line is going to be outstanding. So look for the offensive line to carry that running game again, while those 2 quarterbacks back there compete for the starting job.
Andrew Jackson, second team All-WAC, leads them with 3 offensive linemen with starting experience. Defensive side of the ball, 8 starters return. Chris Carter, the defensive end, second team All-WAC, and Ben Jacobs, 113 tackles, also second team All-WAC.
2 big stars on that defense. Ben Jacobs and Moses Harris, linebacker, strong safety. Like I said, a lot of tackles, but Moses Harris can also play the pass. It was a lot of shootouts last year with Fresno State. 31 points a game, 5.6 yards to carry on defense. That has to improve if they're going to make any type of noise in the WAC.
Fresno was the WAC preseason favorite last year. They went into Piscataway to beat Rutgers. High expectations. They went 500 from there on in. At a conference at Wisconsin, at Cincinnati, and at Illinois in the finale. Really living up to the motto, anytime, anywhere. They get Boise at home week 3 on a Friday night. They travel to Nevada.
Now, that's a tough slate at Wisconsin, at Nevada, and at Illinois. I have a problem with that.
Nevada, the pistol offense led by Chris Ault, who's actually in his 25th year as Wolfpack head coach. Colin Kaepernick, offensive WAC player of the year last year. This guy is 6'6", and in the pistol offense, he got almost 600 rushing yards, 593. First team, I like the tailbacks. First team All-WAC, Vi Tawa and Luke Lippincott, who was injured after 2 games last year.
You look at Colin Kaepernick, that guy, 1,100 yards rushing, 17 rushing touchdowns, 22 passing touchdowns. This guy is a phenomenal athlete. He can play quarterback. He makes good decisions with the football. I like him. I look at their running backs, like I said, Vi Tawa, 5'11", 225, 15 touchdowns, 1,500 yards rushing. And don't forget about Luke Lippincott, like you said, is a real good player too. So they got 2 solid running backs, awesome quarterback. You look at receivers, Chris Wellington, 6'1", he 200 pounds, 15 yards per catch and 6 touchdowns. So offensive skill players, skill player wise, they're straight. I like the skill players.
2 All-WAC players, Chris Gallant and Alonzo Durham, man their offensive line.
Their offensive line, 2 seniors, 3 juniors. They could be the best offensive line in the WAC.
First team All-WAC player, defensive end Kevin Basped, and second team Dante Mock lead the defense.
Between those 2 players, coming off the ends, that's 22.5 sacks. They can get after the quarterback. I like that about Nevada's defense. You also look at they returned 7 starters that gave up 89 rushing yards per game. That is impressive. They could stop the run, get after the quarterback. 300-yard passing games, 32 points a game. They have to improve their pass defense, and they have to stop people from scoring on them. But running the ball and getting after the quarterback, nobody can do it better.
Trying to improve that defense will be Jonathan Amaya, strong safety, 4 interception last year. Schedule-wise, they have to travel to South Bend early at Colorado State, and they host Missouri and UNLV at a conference. That's not too bad for a WAC team. In conference, they close the season at Boise on the Smurf turf, November 27th.
That Notre Dame game might be the one that springboards Nevada into the BCS.
It'll be very, very interesting. San Jose State, Dick Tomey's 5th year, 15 returning starters, and they lose Jerron Gilbert, great defensive tackle, but they bring in 5 JUCO players, and Kyle Reed is going to lead them at quarterback, led by another JUCO transfer behind him as tailback Lamont Muldrow.
Well, you look at Kyle Reed, he has a strong arm, 64% completion percentage. You look at the big wide receivers they have. You have Jerkovich, Anderson, Buchanan, 6 feet, 6'4", 6'4", respectively. Those guys can get it. The offensive line has some experience, so they're going to be improved. Running back, the JC transfer, Muldrow, I like him. I like the way he plays. He's going to do fine. That offense, has some experience, and I like the way they look on paper. Kevin
Jurovich, 100 receptions 2 years ago before being injured last year. And as you mentioned, experienced offensive line, 5 return with starting experience. Defensive side of the ball, led by 2 brothers, Carl Iheanacho, the defensive end, second team All-WAC, and first team All-WAC, the Rover, the guy who plays safety linebacker, Duke Iheanacho, 5 interceptions last year.
The strength is in their secondary. The secondary needs some work. The strength is in their front 7. Sorry about that. Defensive line, linebackers, solid across the board. Secondary needs a little work. Linebacker Justin Cole, a beast. He can really play defensive end as well, too, so he can line up in both positions. I just like their front 7. Their secondary needs work, especially playing an explosive WAC.
They bring in Brandon Driver, a JUCO transfer, to help out in that secondary as a D-back. At a conference, they're at USC. They host Utah, and they're at Stanford. Very tough schedule. At a conference. In conference, they're at Boise, at Fresno, at Louisiana Tech, and they get Nevada and Hawaii at home.
Yeah, that's a tough September. If they can make it out alive in September, they'll be fine.